This woman was bitten by a radioactive cat and became Halle Berry. Catwoman. First of all, there's a woman floating in a pool who says it all started the day she died. She says some other stuff and then ends up by saying that the day she died was the day she started to live. But that comes later. Then we see a view of the city and land on this lady, Patience Phillips, who's rushing to work. A job she says is the practical version of her passion. She says she's supposed to be an artist by now, but she's designing ads for a beauty cream instead. She and her friend Sally are having a little chit chat and we see Sally use an unreleased cream made by the company they work for, Adair. She complains about a headache while she applies it, but nothing too serious. Anyway, we now see a man, George Adair, introducing a new product named Buline in a meeting. He's cut off by his wife, Laurel, who says they have decided that she will step down as the face of Adair after 15 years. He then reveals Drina as the new face, the future of Adair Beauty, but you can already sense some conflict between the couple, and we'll get to that in just a second. Patience is summoned to the office by George, and from outside, she and Sally can hear him yelling at his wife in the office. Patience knocks on the door and she's told to come in. The first thing he tells Patience once she takes a seat is that he's not pleased. He says he's not happy with the last work she did, but he doesn't just stop there. He shades her manicure and her fashion sense. I have to say though, she sort of deserves that wardrobe jab, because what is she wearing? He seems like he wants to fire her, but Laurel intervenes and he tells Patience to fix it by midnight tomorrow. But at home, the party the neighbors are having is not helping her get some rest. She goes out the window to beg them to turn the music down, but nobody is even looking her way. She gives up, but just then, her eye catches a cat. She shuts the window and boom, the cat had disappeared. She thinks nothing of it and heads to bed. The next morning, she's doing some painting when the cat shows up by her window. She opens the window to let the cat in and finds out that the cat has found its way up the building. At this point, a normal human being would say, I tried, shut their window and go back to work. But this lady decides instead to climb out her window, risking her life for this disappearing cat. What? When I said she risked her life, I wasn't joking, because she very nearly had a fatal fall after standing on an air conditioner. A cop notices her and thinks she wants to self-delete. Who wouldn't? In today's economy. So he goes to encourage her, not to jump, but to stop, and tells her they'll get through this together, whatever it is. She tries to explain to him that she's only out here for the cat, but you guessed it, the cat has disappeared again. The cop then asks for her apartment number and dashes up to her house. He arrives just in time to snatch her from the air just before falling. I know my physics is not so good, but I'm pretty sure the cop and the lady should have fallen to their death with the way he stretched out to catch her there. But what do I know? Anyway, this cop guy, Lone, pulls Patience into the house, and guess what? That cat she was about to die for is in her apartment. But then she realizes that she's late for work, so she runs out. She drops her wallet on the way though, so Lone picks it up. He sees a potential for a second meeting right there, so he doesn't hurry to give it to her. He holds onto it. Kinda sketchy, but okay. At the office, Laurel is walking into the building, and she sees the photo of Drina on the billboard, and she stops and stares with a menacing look on her face. Her own photos are smaller and to the side now. George shows up and says a few words to her. He tells her not to wait up for him tonight, and he cancels their lunch date for tomorrow. Then Lone shows up at the office to give Patience back her wallet, but of course he doesn't just drop it and leave. He looks through her stuff and starts a conversation. In fact, he reveals that he had googled some art he noticed at her apartment. Anyway, he finally hits the nail on the head and asks her out. Coffee tomorrow, 1 p.m. She says yes. To be fair, she couldn't have said no because Sally would have clapped her. Lone leaves and they do some little gossiping. Sally tells her to shave her legs and wear the leather outfit she got her for her birthday. Patience swears she'll never wear that outfit. Well, we'll see about that, young lady. Anyway, they all head back to work and Patience is there all day. Literally, she has a deadline, remember? She finishes a few minutes to midnight and goes to deliver it herself to Adair, but the door is locked. So she goes round back. She has to meet her deadline. There are people inside actually. In fact, Laurel is in a meeting where a scientist is telling her that the side effects of Buline will be worse than just headaches and nausea in the long run. If people start using it and stop at some point, their faces could look like this. But Laurel is stone cold. She says that will only happen if they stop using it, and we'll make sure they don't because that's where the money comes from. And this is why we need to start eating the rich. But right now, Patience is about to be eaten alive because she walks into the meeting, sees the image on the screen, and hears what the scientist is talking about. But she clatters some glass containers to the floor so they know someone is there. She runs. They quickly alert security and everyone is on her tail now. Two guys catch her hiding in a storage room and try to convince her to come out and talk, but once she shows her face, one of the men shoots, so she takes off again. The men are really just letting the bullets fly now, so she jumps down and walks through a huge pipe where waste flows through in order to escape. So they send a heavy load of waste and she's flushed out with all of the rubbish. Now where's that disappearing cat when you need it? Right there, as a matter of fact. Now remember what I called the pool at the beginning? It was in fact a pool of waste. This was the day she died and started to live, or whatever. Her body is washed up to some place and a bunch of cats gather around it. The Mufasa of this cat kingdom then catwalks up her body and breathes life back into her. Then we see her eyes change from human eyes to cat eyes. This was her catsening, like awakening, but with cats. And from this moment on, she was now Catwoman. You can't make this stuff up. Anyway, when when she wakes up, she doesn't see any cat, but she does see birds and spiders. She finds her way out of that place and she realizes she can fly now, or at least jump really high and far. She also has some commendable strength, so she breaks into her own house through the window. She manages to get some sleep and is woken up by a call from Sally, who thinks she's currently on her date with Lone and is asking how her presentation went. Then we quickly cut to Lone, who's at the coffee shop waiting for Patience, so he calls her. It goes to voicemail and he says he has to leave and get back to work. She notices the cat now and she says it's time for it to go home. She finds a name, address, and phone number in its collar, so she goes to return it to its owner, Ophelia Powers. Quite the name. Ophelia opens the door and she starts talking to the cat, whose name is Midnight, by the way, like it's a human. And I think that's about right. That's not a cat. That's a grown woman. She asks Patience to come in. She does, and is quickly surrounded by so many cats. Man, there are probably 92 lives in this room right now. Ophelia explains that Midnight is an Egyptian Mao, and Maos are said to have special powers. She also says that her cats have taken an unusual shine to Patience. Then, when Patience says she can't remember most of yesterday, she offers to help her, but Patience insists she has to leave. She says she's late for work. Do you really think you still have that job? She hurries to leave the house, and Ophelia just throws catnip at her. Patience catches it and immediately starts rubbing it all over her face, until Ophelia retrieves it from her. What am I even watching? Marvel could never top this. She tells Patience she can come back anytime. Patience leaves the house and battles with the idea of going back that moment, but she decides to head to the office instead, where she receives some stern lambasting from George in front of the entire office, but she's not even listening. She's scribbling a monster-looking George on a paper. He sees it, takes the paper, and squeezes it. She says she's sorry, and he replies that sorry is not nearly enough. Then she decides to switch up her apology. She says, "I'm sorry for every second I wasted working for an untalented, unethical egomaniac like you." Sounds like something my video editor would say. Need I say that George fired her on the spot? But then something seems to switch in her head, and she says she didn't mean what she just said. What a way to ruin your badass exit from the company. She should have just kept it 100. Okay, I spoke too soon. She actually didn't ruin her exit. In spite of the cowardly apology, the entire art department is applauding her like she just earned a big promotion. She's now walking with Sally and trying to explain to her what happened back there. She says it felt like she was saying it, but she wasn't saying it. Is this a woman moment? Two dogs start barking at Patience and she hisses at them. Sally asks her what that is and she said it's allergies. Maybe. Seriously, who signed off on this movie? Then Patience sees a beautiful necklace in a jewelry store and is admiring it, when Sally just slumps. She rushes her to the hospital and stays until they wheel her back out. They have a little talk about Lone. Patience says it's not going to work out, but Sally says that's what she always says. She encourages her friend to go meet Lone as she's wheeled away. Now we see Lone giving a talk to little kids at a school. And guess who shows up at the school? Yes, Patience. And no, she didn't use her cat powers to sniff his location out. She called the police station and they told her where to find him. She hands him an apology coffee. They're now on the basketball court and the kids demand a show from both of them. So they throw the ball to her and she shows off some insane skills. Are these cat powers too? Oh wow, I see. Say hello to Steph Kitty, guys. Give it up for LaMeow James. Please forgive me for that joke. Now, Patience and Lone go one-on-one and are really having fun with it. Nah, these two are shooting a music video for a 90s pop song because this surely isn't basketball. We now head back to Adair and we can see Laurel just throwing the pictures of Drina on the table. An employee comes in and tells her that George is busy at the factory, but she doesn't seem very interested. She says her husband hasn't said anything meaningful to her since he said, "I do." Then she walks to the window and she's so right. We see him walking to his limo with Drina. She sees that and crushes the glass in her hand. Now we see Patience on her bed eating cat food when Sally calls her. She's feeling better, if you can call that feeling better. She wants all the tea on Lone, and Patience starts giving it to her, and she's hopping up and down her house. Patience says something weird has been happening to her, and Sally just tells her to be herself on the next date. Classic advice, but it seems Patience doesn't even know who she is anymore. Later at night, Patience is woken up by the sound of loud music from her neighbor's party, so she goes out the window to tell him to turn the music down. He tells her to get a life. Oh brother, if only you knew that she has 9 now. She looks down, sees a cat, then goes to knock at the neighbor's door. She tries to politely ask him to turn the music down, but he just shuts the door in her face, so she kicks the door down. You can tell she's a little surprised she was able to do that, but she plays it gangster. She gets in and starts destroying the party. She claps the speakers, pushes her neighbor down, and threatens him a little. She goes back into her house and she likes how she's feeling. So what does she do? She goes to uncover that leather outfit that Sally got her for her birthday. Then she cuts her hair, puts on some makeup and the leather outfit, and goes out to jump on a bike that's not even hers. She says, "Time to accessorize," and starts riding like crazy to that jewelry shop she saw the other day. Coincidentally, some other thieves got there before her and are doing their thing. She goes inside and she calls the armed robbers with big weapons amateurs. Then she says, "You guys thought you could come in here and steal all these beautiful things? What a perfect idea." You get it? She's purring. Then they start shooting at her, but she's dodging the bullets by jumping all over the place. Then she goes ahead to take all 3 men at the same time. No, not like that. She beats them all up. Then she does the stealing herself and leaves. So why then did she beat them up for doing exactly what she ended up doing? You guys could have just cooperated and everyone would have been happy. I guess there's no honor amongst thieves. Patience wakes up the next morning and realizes she stole all those things last night, so she returns them all. She drops the paper bag full of jewelry at the store with a note saying sorry. She also drops a box of cupcakes for the troubles. Lone is the detective on the case, by the way. Now Patience is doing some research on cats and the supernatural. All her research leads her back to midnight, so she goes back to Ophelia, who had been waiting for her. Ophelia is now showing Patience some books she wrote about sacred cats. Apparently, she was a professor for years, and now she's just a crazy cat lady. She's now telling her about a goddess named Bast, who represents the duality in all women. She goes on to tell Patience that what happened that night that she doesn't remember was that she died. It sounds crazy to Patience, but Ophelia continues explaining. She says Midnight knew her fate the entire time, and that was why she tested her to see if she was worthy of a gift that could change her life. Then she pushes Patience down the stairs, and she lands gracefully, just like a cat. Coincidence? I think not. Then she shows her pictures of several catwomen that Midnight saved before her. How long has this cat been alive? She says catwomen are not contained by the rules of society. You follow your own desires. This is both a blessing and a curse. You will often be alone and misunderstood, but you will experience a freedom other women will never know. You are a catwoman. Every sight, every smell, every sound, incredibly heightened, fierce independence, total confidence, inhuman reflexes. Patience then asks, so I'm not Patience anymore? To which Ophelia answers, you are Patience and you are Catwoman. Incredible writing. That was truly one of the lines of all time. Then she hands Patience a mask and tells her to accept who she is. By wearing a mask? Whatever. And by accepting all of who she is, she can be free. And freedom is power. Then we see Patience sitting at the top of a building with the mask, and Midnight beside her. She tells Midnight that she saved her life, but someone tried to kill her, and she has to find out who and why. If only the cat could speak, then this movie would end a lot sooner. Then we see her walking majestically atop a building in a leather outfit. Then she jumps down, and then just starts hopping from building to building until she gets to Hader. She recognizes the security agent that shot at her in the storage unit, and that's her first target. She follows him into a bar and orders some milk before going after him. She gets in there and starts displaying. She's dancing and grabbing everyone's attention, including the man. They think she's just an over-enthusiastic dancer, but little do they know, she's a Catwoman. She now makes her way to where he's sitting, and he thinks she's about to kiss him, but instead, she throws him outside and starts beating the crap out of him. He tries to reach for his gun, but she had already taken it from him. She tosses it aside and starts manhandling him. God, I wish that were me. She now pins him on the floor and asks him why he killed the nice girl the other night, just when he's about to speak. She holds his tongue and says, "Cat got your tongue?" Bazinga! Somebody wrote that line. She releases his tongue, and he says he only did what he was instructed to do, which was to flush the pipes. She asks why they asked him to do that, and he says he doesn't know. She heard something about a Bew line which he wasn't supposed to hear, so they wanted to get rid of her. She has heard what she needs to hear from him, so she just gives him one last kick in the face and leaves him there. Poor guy. Then she heads into the Hader building. The scientist who was with Laurel the other time, Slavicki, is lying clapped on the floor. Then a janitor comes and sees her there just as the alarm goes off. She quickly escapes. Next day, she goes to visit Sally, and her friend absolutely loves the new look. Then, just as they're talking, a sketch of her face pops up on the TV as the person who murdered Slavicki. But George then announces that the death won't stop Hader from launching. Just then, Patience puts two and two together and asks Sally how long she's been having these headaches while looking at the container of Bew line she has been using. She says a month. Patience then tells her friend to stop using it because that's what has been making her sick. Now we see Lone looking pensive at work. He now asks a coworker, Bob, who just handed him a file of the Slavicki case, if his wife would crawl out the ledge of a building to rescue a stray cat. He says, maybe, if the cat was carrying a pizza. Okay, that one was good. Just then, he notices the similarities in the handwritings on the paper bag from the jewelry store and the cup of coffee Patience gave him. He takes it to a scientist who points out the similarities, but insists they were written by two very different women. How do you even know it's a woman? To emphasize, he says, if you put these two women in the same room, you're gonna have one hell of a party. Thank you, that's very helpful to the case. Somehow he's right and wrong at the same time. Anyway, Lone now heads out and we see him and Patience on a play date. Then he asks Patience if she thinks there's anyone who might have a grudge against Hader, and she says, lots of people. He fired me. He gives her a look, so she asks if she's a suspect now, and he just says no, and walks away. They're now on a roller coaster ride when it just suddenly stops and the couple try and use that opportunity to hang out, but the thing starts jerking back and forth in a scary way. This is probably a sign for me to never get on one of these. Lone now climbs down to try and stop the machine from crashing. A little boy on the roller coaster seems like he's about to fall off. He's calling for his mom. Patience notices him, and just as he was about to fall off the thing, she shows up in time to catch him. She's barely holding on now. Lone manages to get the machine to stop jerking, and the crowd starts cheering Patience. She just saved the little boy's life. Now we see the boy with his mom. Patience says her goodbyes to him and goes to meet Lone. They tell each other they're impressed with each other, and Lone says they should celebrate over dinner tonight. But Patience says no, because she has some business to take care of tonight. What's the business? You guessed it. Something with Hader. She breaks into the building rather stealthily and walks upstairs, but she's startled by Laurel, who comes and hits her from behind with a golf club. She rolls down the stairs, but in a very cat-like manner. I guess. She and Laurel are now face to face, and Laurel says she's the cat that killed Slavicki. But Patience replies, "You don't believe everything you see on TV, do you?" Laurel asks her what she wants, and she says her husband, but he's not home. So she rolls her down the stairs and tells her to tell her husband that she knows all about the Buline being a disease in a jar. She also says whoever killed Slavicki did it to keep Buline secret. She's pretty much suggesting it's George, and Laurel says she won't be surprised because he's capable of anything. So she tells Patience where to find him, and even says she'd like to help. She gives Patience her phone and tells her to reach her with it. Patience immediately heads to the place where George is, and the security personnel of the building immediately asks for the cops to be called when he sees Catwoman hopping all around. Inside, George is with Drina. She says she thinks the show is a waste of their time, and he tells her not to ever think. That's the condition of their relationship. Of course, she feels insulted, so she stands up and leaves. But he's an alpha male, you know. He doesn't beg. Next thing, he hears a female voice from behind him, but he looks and it's not Drina. It's Catwoman. Before he can even say anything, she has already scratched his face. Then she jumps on him and tells him she knows all about the Buline and how he clapped Patience. By now, cops are already in the building and are knocking at the door to his section, but Catwoman locked it. The cops force the door open and get in, so she jumps down to the stage, but she somehow doesn't disturb the performance. The crowd even thinks she's one of them, and they start cheering. She goes backstage and guess who comes to arrest her? The love of her life, Detective Lone. But she escapes and appears behind him. She startles him and he nearly falls, but she holds him, practically saving his life. But he's still bent on arresting her. He brings out the cuffs, but she grabs it from him and they start fighting. The fight doesn't even look too serious. It looks more romantic than violent, to be honest. And then the tussle becomes even more sussy. He tries to take off her mask, and she says, "Not on the first date." You know what he replies? "Don't flatter yourself, I'm taken." Isn't that just so sweet? She's probably blushing under that mask right now. Anyway, she kicks him away and jumps down as more cops show up. So she just cuts the lights and escapes easily. She's the only nocturnal being present after all. Now we see George on the phone yelling that this is a disaster, and asking who the Catwoman is, and how she knows all this. Just then, Laurel comes in and tells him not to be scared. He's infuriated by that statement, but she doesn't care. She goes on to roast him. She tells him to stop popping those blue pills like they're vitamins, stop dating children born the same day the cell phone was invented, and just be a man for once. Then she kicks him in the chest. He's super pissed now, so he strikes her across the face, and his hand nearly breaks. She says, "Buline works wonders, doesn't it?" Oh, wow. Is that seriously? Okay. Now we see Patience and Sally trying to pick out a dress for Patience for her date. Patience is nervous. Anyway, she's now on her date, and it doesn't have the best start, because once the sushi arrives, she doesn't even let it land before she rushes it. She doesn't even realize how she's acting until Lone calls her attention to it. Now they're talking about Catwoman. She says she knows her, and Lone reports the kiss she gave him to Patience. Such a sweet man. He says they should talk about Patience instead, and asks her what it's like to be an artist. She says she's not an artist, and in fact, she doesn't even know what she is anymore. Relatable. He says he knows what she is, and tells her she's different and special. He wants to know more about her. All guys say the same thing. On their walk back home after the date, she says she wants to tell him something. She's struggling to get the words out, and then it starts raining, and she quickly drags him and goes to hide under a shed. She says she hates the rain, just like a cat. Under there, he asks her what she was trying to say, but she says nothing important. Then they head back home and finish up what they started. He wakes up later and notices marks on his back from a scratch. He doesn't think much of it. He heads to the fridge to get a bottle of water, and on his way back, he notices a nail on the floor. He gets suspicious, sees a glass she drank from, and you can tell he's thinking of a DNA test. By the time Patience wakes up, Lone had left. Then she gets a call from Laurel, who tells her she was right, and Buline is toxic and she has proof. She says they have to stop George together. Wait a minute, wasn't Laurel the one in the meeting? You're confused, aren't you? But just wait for it. Anyway, she says George will be launching Buline at a press conference tomorrow, and they have to stop him. Meanwhile, Lone is already at the lab running some tests. The mark he got from Catwoman and the DNA from Patient's glass have a 99% match. Now Catwoman heads to Laurel, and Laurel says she has enough evidence to put someone away for a long time. She talks about how she was everything they wanted her to be, but they threw her away once she turned 40. She directs Catwoman to the evidence, and you won't believe your eyes. It's George's body. That's the evidence. And Catwoman is the person to be put away for a long time. Laurel clapped her husband and made it look like Catwoman did it. She then says nobody will stop Buline from hitting the shelves. Not Slavicki, not George, and not Catwoman. Then just on cue, she throws a smoking gun to Catwoman, hits the alarm, and starts fake crying. The police are there in no time, and are on Catwoman's tail. Lone shows up too, still looking confused, but Patience manages to change out of her Catwoman costume and escape. On the road, she sees on a big screen a picture of George with the caption, "Catwoman claps again." Then she sees Lone doing an interview. She heads back home and she sees Lone there. He's holding a revolver, and he says, "Patience, I'm sorry," and then he shoots her. Just kidding, he takes her in. At the station, she's trying to explain that it was actually Laurel who clapped those men. The story isn't making sense, because all the evidence points to her. The same gun killed both men, and she was seen at both crime scenes. She tells him he can believe her, but that's not not really how detectives work, is it? She's now reminding him of the first time he saw her. She says that time, all the evidence pointed to her being a crazy person trying to jump to her death, but it turned out not to be that. She says she really needs him to believe her, and he says how can he when he doesn't know who she is? She's crying now and says she's the same girl he was with last night, so he just stands up to leave. She's taken to her cell and the cops tell her, "You be a nice kitty now," and she hisses at him. Discord moderator moment. Lone is back at the office, trying to figure this entire thing out when Bob shows up and says, "You may have lost your woman, but at least you got your man." Bars. You know I gotta appreciate a good line when I hear one. Anyway, Midnight shows up in Patience's cell, and she snuggles her, while remembering the words Ophelia said to her about freedom being power and all that. Patience then says, "It's not just about me anymore, Midnight," while staring at a Buline billboard. She drops Midnight and then slithers out of the cell and then out of the station through the window. She nearly gets hit by a car, but the driver stops right in time. He comes out to ask if she's okay. And what does he get for being a good person? His car is stolen from him by her. Well, you can argue that it's for the greater good, but still. We now see Laurel in front of the press announcing that the launching of the Buline will go on tomorrow. Lone shows up and asks to talk to her privately. Meanwhile, Catwoman is making her way into the compound. She cripples all the trucks which were supposed to take out the Buline packages. Now Lone is questioning Laurel. He says Catwoman had no motive and the scratch marks were on George but not on Slavicki. He tells Laurel he knows the truth about the Buline and the murders, but he's making her believe they can work something out and he'll make the evidence he has on her disappear. She then asks him what he wants, and he says she has just given him what he wants, which is her admitting she did it. Then boom, she just turns around and shoots him. He goes down, and then she walks and stands over him, but just as she's about to pop him with the lethal shot, Catwoman shows up and wraps her whip around Laurel's head to stop her from shooting. Instead of just clapping Laurel there and then, she decides to just take Lone and leave. While still in the building, they stop and he apologizes. But this is not the time for that. Two men are looking for them. Even Laurel is. Catwoman claps one man. A bleeding Lone claps the other. Now we get a one-on-one between Catwoman and Laurel. Laurel is shooting at Catwoman, but she disappears and shows up behind her. She's now telling Laurel that she's Patience Phillips, the woman she flushed down the pipes. Well, she's giving her a good beating. Laurel is holding her own down for someone who isn't a superhero. Apparently, the Buline is what makes it hard for Catwoman to hurt her. You stop using it and your face disintegrates. But if you keep using it, you get skin like living marble, she says. So basically, she can't feel a thing. Not the punches, not the kicks, not the slaps. Catwoman now throws Laurel into a glass billboard. It shatters and Laurel plays dead. But when Catwoman comes close enough, Laurel picks up a broken glass and stabs her in the leg. Then she picks up a rod and starts beating her up while calling her a scared looking girl who's just playing dress up. She now pushes her to the window and repeatedly pokes her with the rod. "I'd like to poke her with my rod." The glass shatters and it looks like Catwoman is going to fall to her death. So Laurel says, "Game over." But Catwoman holds on and says, "Guess what? It's overtime." These are real lines that were actually said. Then she jumps back in and she has her mojo back. She picks up her whip and starts violating Laurel. She kicks her and Laurel stumbles out the window but manages to hold onto a rod. Catwoman goes and offers her a hand. She tries to take it but she ends up falling to her death. Poetically, she lands right in the center of the company H. Lone shows up beside her and she says, "I might not be a hero, but I'm certainly not a killer." Then Lone tells her they'll be able to wrap up the murder cases pretty easily once Laurel's men start talking. Then he tells her that if Patience is back in her cell by morning, it'd be tough to prove that she's Catwoman with all that has happened tonight. She smiles. We get a closer look of Laurel's body, and we quickly cut to the headline of the Standard, which says, "Catwoman topples Hedare Empire." It's Sally who's reading it with her doctor-turned-boyfriend. Patience then sends cards to Ophelia and Lone. Ophelia's card says, "Thank you for everything, especially the cat's superpowers," while Lone's card is not as cheerful. She tells him he's a good man, but he lives in a world which has no place for someone like her. That's just cat speak for, "It's not you, it's me." She says her journey begins now as she sashays on top of a building with Midnight giving her some support on the side. She's on top of the world, and I guess you can say she has made the world her catwalk. Moral of the story? Still better than Morpheus.